Hello guys, welcome to Solving Solutions, your number one channel where you get solutions to all your solving problems. It's nice having you in class again today. How have you been? On today's tutorial, we are going to show you how to use ArcGIS Pro to insert multiple grids or graticles in your map or maybe on your map. So we have the proposed road here. So the first thing is that we come to insert, and then from insert we look at new map layout. So we use this drop down. Then from this drop down, we try to scroll through the different paper sizes to select our preferred paper size. So let's say we want to use A4 and then we want to use it in a landscape orientation. So let's go with this. So we have actually picked A4 in a landscape orientation. Now in this layout, we are going to first of all insert a frame. So we come up to graphics and text. We use that drop down, and then we also use this drop down here. What we need is actually a rectangle. So we select that rectangle and then we try to define a rectangular extent here, right? Good. So having defined the extent, this will now serve as our borderline. The next thing is for us to add the map frame. So we come to this map frame drop down. We only have one here, which is the map you can see here. So we just select that and then we still try to drag and drop. Good. So this is the extent we want to add the grids on. The next thing is that we can see that we still have a few spaces, so we can decide to modify the scale. So this is 4,000, right? Good. So we can decide to take it to maybe 3,000 or 3,500 to see how it best occupies the whole space. Okay, so 3,500 is good. Having established that, the next thing is for us to now add the grids. Now under the map frames, we have the new grid. Create a new grid on the map frame. So we use that drop down. Now when we use drop down, we have different grid representations. We have the graticles, and then if you scroll down, we also have the measured grid, where you now have it as easting and northing, right? Good. So for the purpose of today's demonstration, we are going to use blue vertical label graticule, right? Good. In that our label on the left hand side will not be displayed horizontally but vertically. So this is what we mean. You can see that in this first option, the latitude value here is displayed horizontally, right? Good. Whereas here it is displayed vertically. So we select that option. Now that it's up, if you zoom in a bit, you are going to see the different information. However, remember that what we want to achieve is just to have multiple grids. So we are just going to walk through modifying or maybe editing these grid values so that we have a fewer grid values, right? Good. So we have the black vertical label grid. We right click and then we select the properties. Now these properties will now help us to modify or edit some of the grid properties that is being displayed along with the grid, right? Good. So the first thing is that we need to take off these grid lines. So we use this drop down, we select grid lines. Then from the grid lines, ensure that you have auto apply so that whatever correction you make will be applied automatically. So let's see if we can take this to 0. Good. You see that the grid lines are off, right? Good. So we have taken the grid lines off. The next thing is for us to work on the intervals of this our first grid. So you now see that this interval is a bit small, so we can decide to increase it so that we have fewer coordinates, right? Good. So under the map grid, we come to the components and then we look at the labels. The next thing to note is that we need to look at the intervals, right? Good. So let's come back and then we have automatically adjust. We need to uncheck automatically adjust so that we can be able to modify the interval. So we come back to the components and then instead of having it at 0 degrees 0 minutes 2 seconds, we can decide to have it at 0 degrees 10 minutes, right? Good. So when we say synchronize values, it simply means that what we have for the longitude will also be applied for the latitude. So you now see that instead of having it as 2 seconds, we now have it as 10 minutes, right? Good. So that's a bit too large, so we can decide to still reduce it to maybe 0 degrees 0 minutes, maybe 40 seconds to see how that goes. Okay, so let's leave it at 20 seconds, right? Good. So this is for the labels. Now the next thing is for us to modify the ticks to this 20 seconds interval so that we don't have some ticks that don't have labels under them. So we come to ticks and then instead of having them as 2 seconds, we take them to 20. Good. So we now have only ticks that are directly under the intervals of interest, right? Good. Then remember that you can also modify and take off these smaller ticks, right, which is what tick 1. So let's believe that you have modified the first grid to your taste. Remember, you can always increase the font size and all of that. You now want to insert the second grid. So the same way you have done the first grid, you come up to what, you still select the map frame, you come up to new grid. Remember, we selected graticles, which gave us the longitude and latitude. Now we want to go to measured grids, which will now give us what, easting and northings. So to achieve that, let's go with this other black vertical label grid, right? Good. When we have done that, remember the lines are out. We can still decide to come up to the map grids, go to grid lines, and then make this 0, so that we don't have those lines. And then by looking at it, we now see that we have our coordinates being displayed, the projected coordinates being displayed. Good. So still under the map grid, we can still come back to the components, and then this time around we look at the labels, right? Good. So remember that before we get to this point, we can decide to uncheck automatically adjust, so that we can be able to change the values. And then another thing to note is that under the coordinate system, you can always select the coordinate system of the data set you have imported. So basically, this is the projected version of the geographic earlier. So you can decide to confirm if the coordinate that is being displayed is in tandem with the projected information that you are working with. If it is not, you use what? Choose the grid coordinate system. Good. So this opens up the coordinate system selector, and then you either search for it or you scroll up to the top, and then you navigate your way down to selecting what, the actual projected coordinate system of your data set, right? Good. So that's how you work with this coordinate system. So having fixed that, and then having unchecked the automatically adjust, we can now come to the components. So we still click on label. So instead of having it as 100 meters interval, we can decide to increase it to 500 meters. Since we are synchronizing the value, so on both axes we are going to have 500 meters. So with this, we now have 500 meters on the easting, 500 meters on the northings. And then for our display, we can decide to look at the format. You can see the grid, the decimal places, the show direction. If we change the show direction to true, we are now going to see the direction if it is easting or if it is northings, right? Good. So if we change the false to true, we are going to see that easting or northings will be inserted to our coordinates. You now see that this is for easting, and then if you come to this point, you can see that this is for northings, right? Good. So we can also decide to include the units as watt meters. So far we have shown you using ArcGIS Pro how to, and remember, you can always increase the font sizes, change the colors, and take out some of these other smaller grids that you don't need. But basically, we have shown you how to use ArcGIS Pro to display multiple grids, which are your graticles and your grids on what your print layout, right? Good. So this helps you maybe when you are working on a very large extent, or maybe you want to show different projections that cover your project area, or whatever the case is, right? Good. So thanks for coming to class. We hope we have provided a solution to this particular GIS related problem. We are going to see you on the next tutorial. Ensure you keep staying safe and have a fantastic time. Bye.